Welcome back guys. Now that the meta has started to shape itself, let's take a more in-depth look at the Adventurer engine, and the Adventurer Rose Tenyi deck in particular. Today, I'll be going over a few basic combos and general strategies to look for when piloting this deck. If you have not yet done so, I recommend watching my previous video going over some of the basics of this engine and showcasing some duels. Let's briefly go over why this Adventurer engine is so powerful. It provides you with great combo pieces, protection for your combos in the form of Gryphon, and an out to problematic cards when going second, with Dracoback. And it does all of those things with a single card's activation. That card also happens to be searchable. When looked at from this angle, there's not many cards in Yugioh that do so much by themselves as Rite of Aramesir. Let's talk about Handtraps a bit, as that is an extremely important aspect of competitive Yugioh. Cards like Effect Veiler and Impermanence are great against Flounderies while also being generally good versus most things. Flounder will often pass the turn on nothing if you negate their first bird summon of the turn. Ash Blossom can do the same if they don't have the field spell to chain block the summon. These three Handtraps, along with Maxx C, are your current top choices. Meanwhile, Nibiru is useless against Flounder, and also generally pretty bad against Adventurer decks. I currently don't think it's worth running. While Maxx C is also useless against Flounder, its ability to potentially auto-win games against most other decks if not negated is simply too powerful to not run. If you're looking for more specialized Handtraps, Ghost Ogre and Token Collector have both become more valuable currently. You can try these if you want. Alright, I think that's enough for now. Let's get into some games. I'll first show you a few basic combos to get you used to what plays you should be looking for. Towards the later part of the video, we'll start going over what really makes this deck fun to use, which is going second and trying to break the opponent's boards. That's also where most of your skill as a player can shine, so definitely stick around. As always, the deck list will be written in the description, and I would be super thankful if you could subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. The first 3 games will be exhibitions played in Friend Duel. I generally prefer to use real duels for everything, but in this case, completing these combos in ranked mode proved to be very frustrating, as vast majority of players will quit before you get to the end. The 2 games afterwards will be real diamond ranked games, going second against strong boards. I will leave timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a specific duel or combo, though I do suggest watching everything if you're trying to learn this deck. This first combo shows the basic line you can go for when you have Red Rose Dragon and Rite of Aramesir, or any way to access it. You'll see the play start to deviate from what most people do in Master Duel pretty soon. We go into Yazi after Baronne instead of Halquifibrax. A few moves later, and we're using the effect of Basil Rose Shoot that most people forget about. In fact, I bet some of you watching didn't even know that this card triggers on destruction to revive a Rose Dragon. From here, you can see how the combo goes. Keep the positioning in mind when doing these combos, because you can screw up and run out of space to do everything properly. Now, let's see what a resolved Halquifibrax effect on its own can get us. Here, let's assume we activated Foolish Burial, and it got negated by an Ash Blossom. This solo Halquifibrax play is a line you'll fall back into quite often after an interruption, so it is very important to know what to do with it. Later on in the video, you'll see an example of a player using this deck, and doing this play, but ending on a very suboptimal field. Finally, let's see a combo starting from Galaxy Tomahawk. Remember, if Tomahawk is stopped, you can simply summon any tuner and go into the Halquifibrax line we just saw in the previous example. Because we drew both the Yang Zing trap and one of the level 1 tuners in our opening hand, we're not activating Denglong's search effect here. If you didn't have both, you'd search for the one missing, prioritizing the counter trap, of course. Normally we would send Adhara with Taia's effect at this point. But again, we already drew it. At the end, if you have any spare spell, trap card, simply set it and activate Baxia to bring Adhara back, and make Chaofeng. Okay. Now that we know some basic combos, let's get to the fun part, going second against strong boards. Here, we're going second in a mirror match. The opponent stops our Ash Blossom, and goes for a solo Halquifibrax line. However, as you will see, he makes very suboptimal plays and ends on a weaker field than he should have. In particular, 9 pillars is very easy to play around in this type of field. As it stands, we can abuse this weakness and simply go into the battle phase and run over the Yang Zing tuner before committing to anything else. From this point onwards, our objective is simply trying to clear as much of the board as possible, while setting up a good field of our own. Always keep in mind that Protos is preventing us from summoning dark monsters, of course. Here, we can see a cool little interaction, using Enchantress effect to trigger the level 10 Swordsoul Synchro. This deck is full of things like these, due to all the different engines and archetypes working in tandem. As you get more experience with it, you'll start seeing more lines of play. I'll bid you farewell for now. This next game has us playing through 5 interruptions with a not so great hand. Enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.